welcome to another episode of the Gut Academy. I'm Dr. William DePaolo, and today I'm going to continue in our series highlighting specific microbes of the gut microbiome and talking a little bit about what these microbes do and how they help us maintain a healthy lifestyle and maintain a healthy gut. So today we're going to be talking about Akkermansia Mucinophila. First identified in 2004, Akkermansia Mucinophila inhabits the mucus layer of the large intestine. Like its name suggests, mucinophila means literally to love mucin. So this guy really likes to be right in the thick of that mucus layer. In fact, Akkermansia Mucinophila uses the mucins that are present and are the building blocks of mucus to as food and as an energy source. So it's actually right now its only energy source that we know of is this mucus layer. So Akkermansia Mucinophila, we also know that it's more abundant in healthy individuals, and it's actually considered a marker of a healthy, happy gut, and is also considered one of a group of bacteria called keystone microbes that are present in our gut that help feed and are important to maintain other bacterial populations as well. So Akkermansia Mucinophila is a really important bacteria when we're considering the milieu and the players in our gut microbiome. So what's so special about Akkermansia? Well, to understand that, we have to look at the intestinal lining or our intestinal barrier. So our intestinal lining consists of epithelial cells that are arranged in a single layer. And above those epithelial cells is a mucus layer. And that mucus layer and those epithelial cells exist as a way to keep bacteria, toxins, and food in the intestine, and is a way to filter in beneficial substances that will help the body through that epithelial layer. The reason we want to keep the bacteria and the mucus and the food substances and toxins on the inside of our intestine is because we don't want them to get access to our organs, where we could get sick and potentially get sick and have health consequences because of that. So this mucus layer is actually a really important defensive barrier that we have that functions to keep those microbes out and to keep toxins out and food out of our bodies. Akkermansia, as I mentioned before, loves mucin and loves to live in that mucus layer. And so what it does is it digests the mucus. And when it does that, what it does is it causes cells that produce mucus to create more mucus. So thus, Akkermansia is actually responsible for thickening of the mucus layer and also allowing better turnover of mucus and creating that barrier, protective barrier that we need in order to maintain our health. So Akkermansia, again, is a really important microbe to keep that epithelial barrier intact and to keep us from getting sick from all of those things that are passing through our intestine. Akkermansia is also being considered as a next generation probiotic. And a probiotic is a substance where it's a microbe that, when administered orally in a sufficient dose, will give you some sort of health benefit. And you're probably familiar with the microbes Lactobacillus or Bifidobacterium as ones that you might see on the labels of probiotics or in foods such as kefir or kombucha. But Akkermansia is also an important next generation probiotic because it can boost immunity and reduce inflammation. And it does this through that from protecting our mucus layer and keeping the intestinal permeability low. And that will protect us from a leaky gut. It's also, we know that diseases such as inflammatory bowel disease, obesity, and irritable bowel syndrome also suffer, like we know that there's a leaky gut involved in those sort of diseases. And so Akkermansia, by boosting the mucus layer, will help treat and maybe combat some of the symptoms that you see in some of these diseases. Akkermansia is also very self-sufficient, meaning that it doesn't rely on us to feed it. It actually just uses the mucus that our body produces. So it's really a true symbiont in that aspect, where if there are no nutrients, if you're not eating anything and you're not providing any nutrients to your gut, Akkermansia will still thrive as long as mucus is being produced. When Akkermansia digests the mucus, it will contribute to the other microbes in your gut through a process called cross-feeding. And that's because when Akkermansia breaks down that mucus layer, it produces something called short-chain fatty acid. Short-chain fatty acids are molecules that are really important for our gut health and even outside of our gut in our bodies. And one particular short-chain fatty acid is called acetate. Acetate is produced by Akkermansia when it breaks down the mucus. And what acetate does is used by cells of the intestine to create healthier cells, but is also used by other bacterium like Faecalibacterium prausnitzii, which we talked about in an earlier episode. Acetate can help these bugs produce other factors like butyrate or propionate, which are essential for our gut health as well. So it's called cross-feeding, and it's when one microbe produces a substance that is used by another microbe to produce something of a health benefit. And so Akkermansia is really important in helping to maintain all these other populations of bugs in our gut that we need, that are healthy, like Faecalibacterium prausnitzii. Akkermansia has been has been shown actually in research to be less abundant in individuals with obesity, diabetes, and hypertension. And this is not the case if you're a lean, healthy individual. You'll have lots of Akkermansia, and if you are obese, a diabetic, or have hypertension, there's an association of lower levels of Akkermansia in the guts of those people. And they also show that supplementation with Akkermansia is well tolerated and can help reduce a lot of biomarkers that are involved in liver dysfunction, inflammation, and even reduce cholesterol levels. So that's why this bug is being considered as a next generation probiotic and why it's currently being researched to be able to be put into commercially available probiotics. I've already mentioned that Akkermansia is less abundant in patients with inflammatory bowel disease as well as with diabetes. And so we know that when those levels are lower, that you might be suffering from less mucus, you'll have less healthy mucus turnover, and so we know that a leaky gut or a decreased barrier permeability or increased barrier permeability is associated with inflammatory bowel disease. So if you're somebody who suffers from low levels of Akkermansia, or you have one of these diseases that I mentioned that usually we find less Akkermansia in these patients, how can you increase your levels of Akkermansia, and what can you do to get those levels up? Well, oral supplements are still being researched, and so the safety and efficacy of those drugs are not known yet, so they're not reaching the market. So you can't go out and find a pill with Akkermansia in it. We don't know how well tolerated it will be in humans and things like that. So what we have to do is look to our diets in order to modulate levels of Akkermansia. And so there are two really major groups of food that can help increase Akkermansia. The first is something called foods that are high in polyphenols. Polyphenols are compounds that are found in most fruits and vegetables. They are powerful antioxidants and they possess anti-inflammatory properties. Cranberries and grapes are very much have a lot of polyphenols, and so cranberries and grapes are going to increase the levels of Akkermansia because these molecules stimulate the production of mucin. If you stimulate mucin, you're giving Akkermansia more food that it can eat. So thus, by ingesting grapes, cranberries, black tea, and you're allowing your body to make more mucin, which will feed the Akkermansia that's there and hopefully create more Akkermansia that will be beneficial to your health. The other food that is high in polyphenols are nuts, especially walnuts. These are really high in polyphenols, and so in addition to those cranberries and grapes and black tea, if you start ingesting walnuts, not any sort of spread, but actually the nuts themselves, you'll be able to hopefully feed the Akkermansia that you have in your gut already. The other food type that might feed your Akkermansia is something called fructooligosaccharides, or FOS. These are also a prebiotic, and they are found in bananas, garlic, asparagus, onions, and sometimes in artificial sweeteners. And so those fructooligosaccharides will also help to increase Akkermansia Mucinophila levels. Due to their molecular structure, though, fructooligosaccharides resist digestion, and that makes them able to reach the colon and the large intestine. And so there they can serve as an energy source for intestinal bacteria. However, I want to say that fructooligosaccharides are problematic for people that suffer irritable bowel syndrome. This is due to their poor digestibility, and this can lead to symptoms like bloating or flatulence and abdominal discomfort that can come from eating fructooligosaccharides. So before you start increasing these sort of levels of foods that contain these, if you have a gut disorder or you have any sort of gut dysfunction, you should talk to your doctor about adding in foods that are high in fructooligosaccharides before you go ahead and do that. So that wraps up our sort of talk about Akkermansia Mucinophila. Just to summarize, this is a newly discovered bacteria that is really helpful for maintaining the lining of our gut and maintaining that mucus layer. By producing short-chain fatty acids, they help feed other bacteria and reduce inflammation. And that when present, it means that you have a healthy sort of happy gut. But in patients with obesity, diabetes, IBD, or hypertension, we do see reduced levels of Akkermansia. And so if you want to increase your levels, polyphenols, which are found in cranberries, grapes, and walnuts, and fructooligosaccharides, which are found in bananas, garlic, asparagus, and onions, are great ways to increase those levels. So hopefully you learned something new today, and you have a new appreciation for the mucus in your gut. And until next time, I'm Will DePaolo, and this is the Gut Academy. Thank you.